y'all, it's Sadie at Blissfully Sweet Design Co. And today I would like to talk with you guys a little bit about sublimation. So whether you're a business owner and you're thinking about adding sublimation to your business as additional income, or if you're just a customer and you get tons of sublimated shirts like this one, oh god, ignore this time. Anyways, then this channel is for you. So let's get started. In this video, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to discuss what is sublimation, what do you need to get started with sublimation, and is sublimation for me. There's a few things to think about. Now this is a little bit more geared towards the people who are wanting or interested in doing it. I'm going to Google the definition of sublimation. Let's see. What is sublimation? Thanks to Google, we see that sublimation is the transition of a substance directly from a solid state to a gas state. Basically, what this means for you, and the way that I always think about it, is when you have something and you're doing sublimation, then it is dyed into the fabric. It's there forever. As long as it's the correct material, as long as it's the correct coating, like it's a sublimation item, then it will be there forever unless you cut it off or you chip it off or whatever. That's how my brain thinks about it, is it's dyed into the fabric. Okay, next thing, what do you need to get started with sublimation? There are 100 different answers out here, but I'll just tell you what I did and maybe you can just learn from there. I honestly did not have a lot of upfront money to try this. I didn't even know if I was gonna like anything about sublimation. I'd never made shirts before. I didn't start with vinyl like other people do. The first time I ever bought a heat press was because I wanted to make sublimated shirts. The first thing that is a must-have is a heat press. If you do not have a heat press, then you cannot do sublimation. You can't use an iron. You can't do none of that because it has to be even heat throughout to get the ink to turn into that gas evenly and put into the fabrics of your shirt or whatever item that you're using. Does that make sense? The next thing that you will need is sublimation transfers. So you do not have to go out if you just want to try it and see if you like it. You don't have to go out and buy a printer and get the software and all of that mess. You don't have to do none of that. All you need to do is make sure that you have a transfer. People sell transfers. You can find them on Etsy. There's multiple businesses. That's how I started. I didn't want to spend a bunch of upfront money if I didn't know that I was going to like it. So I just found somewhere with some sublimation transfers, bought a few transfers right after I got my heat press and tried it that way. The next thing that you're going to need if you are getting into sublimation for shirts or whatever, everybody recommends a Teflon sheet. Now I will say that my first heat press, I just got a cheap heat press off of Amazon and it came with a Teflon sheet, so that was not an added expense. Just look whatever you're buying and see if that is an option, if it comes with a Teflon sheet or not. But if they don't, I think they're only like 20 bucks or something like that, if that. Like they might be cheaper. I think the one that I got was around there. It might have been 10. I'm not 100% sure. The next thing that you're gonna need doing anything sublimated is some blowback paper. When I began, I just used regular old copy paper and I would put it on top of the design because since everything turns into a gas, it can seep through your paper, and I learned my lesson there. I didn't put any blowback paper and the image got onto my Teflon sheet and I didn't realize it, and so then I threw my Teflon sheet down on the next item and bam, it had the item that I was trying to do along with a little print of the other shirt that I made. So you definitely do not want that. You'll want blowback paper to go on the outside of your shirt and on the inside, but like I said, I started with regular copy paper. I didn't want to spend a bunch of money and I learned that later on, so I just used what I had. But now I do buy rolls of butcher paper and that seems to do very good. The next thing that you will 100% need is a lint roller. So you got to think, a lot of sublimation stuff, like whether it's garden flags or shirts or whatever, they're lighter colors and there's a lot of white. And what you don't want is to not have lint rolled and then press that image onto your shirt and all of a sudden you have little blue or black lint spots everywhere, because that lint literally, it's almost like it just dyes into the shirt and makes like a little bitty blob, and then you look like you got fuzzies all over your shirt, but it ain't coming off. The last thing that you're gonna need, obviously, is whatever you're gonna sub on. So if you want to try a towel, if you want to try a shirt or whatever you're gonna put that transfer on, you need to make sure you got something. A good place that I've seen where people start with is going to the Dollar Tree, because they have towels, like they have different seasonal stuff. Socks is a big one at Dollar Tree. You can get Dollar Tree socks and just practice on, or you can go to Walmart and they sell the sheets. I guess you can like buy it by the foot or the yard, I don't know how it works, of polyester fabric. So that would be another cheap way just to try if you didn't want to try on a shirt. I started and I pressed a shirt and I immediately fell in love and was like, yes, I'm doing this. Let me order a printer. So this one is not 100% necessary, but it is a good thing to have. There's two of them that I'm gonna say. You do not have to have them to start, but I learned the hard way that it is easier with them. That would be pressing pillows and heat tape. So what a pressing pillow is a little, it's like a Teflon pillow. It's got like foam inside of it and it's sewed together, and you put it inside of your shirt when you press an item, and then it keeps everything level so that the seams of the shirt don't irritate your pressing. So what I mean by that is, if you have like a shirt with a thick collar and you have this collar underneath the press when you're pressing, it's not going to be 100% even and distribute that heat evenly enough to press your image the way that you want it to press. So the other thing is the heat tape. I don't use heat tape whenever I make shirts, but even though I've been doing this for a year and a half, almost 2 years, yeah, almost 2 years. Even though I've been doing this for almost 2 years, y'all, I got a little cubby of jacked up stuff, because something could always go wrong with sublimation and you need to keep that into account. But what the heat tape will do is, if you get your image right on the shirt, if you want to use a few pieces of tape and tape it on there, then you don't have to worry about whenever you go to lift up that Teflon sheet after you press that item, if that item is going to shift. Because if that paper for the transfer shifts just a little bit, you are going to see that on your shirt and you have a messed up shirt. It is ghosting, and it will happen if you do not have it right. The next thing that I want to talk with you guys about is the next big question. Is sublimation for me? The biggest thing to consider, and the thing that makes sublimation a little bit harder than you would think, is the colors and items are limited. Let me repeat that. The colors and items are limited. And what do I mean by that? If you go back to how I explained, the image is dyed into the fabric or the coating or whatever. So if it's dyed into it, you have to have a light enough color to where you can see that dye. You get what I'm saying? So if you have a black shirt and you take this image and you decide to stick it on that black shirt, guess what? You're not going to see a thing, because you can't dye a color into black. It's not going to happen. Or if you have a blue design and you have a blue shirt and you try to stick that blue design on that blue shirt, guess what? Unless it's a crazy different darker shade of blue on your image, you're not going to be able to see it. You might be able to see the outline if it's a different color or something of that nature. But these are things that you have to take into consideration. Also, you have to use polyester items. So that is how sublimation works. It doesn't mix into the cotton. It doesn't mix into whatever else, rayon. I don't know. Maybe it does. I don't think it does. It doesn't mix into that kind of stuff. It mixes into polyester. It clings to those fibers, and that's what it dyes into. That does not mean that you cannot use tri-blends. I use tri-blends. I love tri-blends. A lot of people say that you need to use 65% polyester or more. I like 50. I like the vintage look. My customers like it, but I will not go below 50. There are some products that allow you to do that, to go below that mark, but I have tried them in the past, and honestly, the look and all, it just wasn't enough for me to have to go through that extra process of spraying the shirt down and treating it and all that crazy stuff and letting it dry. I don't like that. Now, there is some kind of coating that I've seen that supposedly you can do it on cotton, but that's just an added cost for you. So for me in my business, I don't use that stuff. I just make sure that I at least have 50% polyester or more and go from there. Now with other blanks, if you decide to get into tumblers or garden flags, or you want to make some ornaments, or you want to do something wood that's sublimated, you have to make sure that you have sublimation material. Like, it has to be sublimation coated material. So you can't just go on Amazon and find a cheap little dollar tumbler and come home and expect to sublimate it. That's not how it works. You're not going to get the colors, you're not going to get the image. You have to make sure that it's sublimation coated, and a lot of people do not like that. They don't understand that. Now, I have seen in groups where every now and then there's something Dollar Tree that comes out or whatever super cheap that you can sublimate on, and I'm not saying that you can't, but there's something in that material where how they made that item that allows you to do so. Does that make sense? So the next thing, if you're looking at getting into sublimation, you will mess up. You will mess up a lot. Let me tell you, I've heard so many people when they ask me questions about getting started, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to mess up. Honey, you gonna mess up. It's gonna happen. It happens to everybody. People who have been doing this for years still mess up because there's so many factors that go into sublimation. For me, my environment, I'm out here in my shop, and if it rained outside, I cannot print anything because it will not press correctly onto my paper. So I know that my colors are gonna be off. I know that I'm gonna mess something up. So I've just stopped even doing it on rainy days. There's so many things. Humidity, temperature, all kinds of things can affect you. If you don't pre-press the shirt enough and you have some moisture in your shirt, then you're gonna mess up. It's gonna ghost. It's gonna look funny. You're not gonna want to give that to a customer. You can't really be a perfectionist. Now, I'm not saying give a bad item out to a customer, but you gotta be prepared to mess up a little bit. Another thing is, if you are wanting to do this yourself and print everything yourself, you have to take into consideration that now you have to purchase a printer, purchase the ink, purchase the paper. Then, after you get all the setup done, there will be maintenance on that item. There will be times where you have to do things. It takes tons of time. When my printer decides that she don't want to work, I have to sit there for hours sometimes and try to fix it, and sometimes it'll take me a few days. Another thing, if you're trying to do this yourself, is you have to have the software. Now, I know a lot of people use the Silhouette Design Studio. That is free, right? I think anybody can download that even if you don't have a Silhouette. So that is an option, but if you're going to get more into doing more things with it, then I know a lot of people use Photoshop and that kind of stuff. So you have to purchase the software if that's the kind of software that you want to use. Even if you don't purchase any software, there's going to be a learning curve there. If you're not used to that kind of stuff, then you need to take into consideration, okay, it's going to take me a minute. I'm going to have to watch tons of YouTube videos on how to get this done. The other thing about printing yourself is you have to purchase your designs. Now, every now and then some places will have like free bundle days or whatever where they throw you some free bundles. But other than that, y'all, you have to purchase your designs. You cannot go into a Facebook group and where everybody's giving out free designs and just take them. You can, but that is illegal and they can come after you for that. Designers work super hard to give you good designs for shirts and things. So I've always been one, I like to go back to that original designer and purchase the design. If I like something, I'm going to buy it from the person that made it because that supports them. That was their idea. That was their creativity. Just because somebody's throwing out free designs does not mean that it's legal and you should take them. Now, whether you do or not, that's on you, but the correct thing to do, especially if you're doing this for a business, is to purchase the designs. And y'all, designs are not cheap. Honestly, I think last year when I had tallied it up, I spent like $4,000 in a year on design for shirts. Not even kidding. I know. That's why I became a designer. The biggest advice that I can give you is do your research. Don't just go out and buy heat press and then go on Facebook somewhere and say, oh, yo, what do I do next? Do some research. Look it up. There's tons of good resources. There's tons of good sublimation-oriented groups on Facebook. And I'm not saying that you can't ask questions, but just make sure that you have an idea of what you're doing before you get there. That way, once you're doing it, then if you have a question, because you kind of already have an idea of how it's supposed to go, then hey, is there anybody that can help me with this? Because I promise you, a lot of people learn that way. You need to get surrounded by people who are willing to help. Make sure that you utilize all your resources, whether it's YouTube or Google, or join Facebook groups or whatever you're gonna do. Having the right people and having the right group around you, even if it's just on social media, however you are comfortable, get somebody that's willing to help you, or find a group that's willing to answer those questions. My all-time favorite group, and the group that taught me the most, is Aparecium Design Co on Facebook. So I will drop the link in the description so that you can check it out, you guys. But I'm telling you, from the very start, all of the designers in there are wonderful. Everybody is so willing to help you. Like I said, try to do some kind of research to at least figure out where you're supposed to be headed. But then if you have any questions, you can hop on, even if it's not in there, in another group, and say, hey, can anybody tell me why my printer is eating my paper? Or can anybody tell me why my printer has roll marks on it? Because you will have those issues and you will be sitting there like, oh my gosh. If you like this video, or if you want to learn more about sublimating certain things, I'm going to be having a lot of videos on how I do certain things, because everybody does it differently. Make sure that you like this video and subscribe. And if I missed out anything, just drop a comment. If you want to see anything, just drop a comment so I know what videos to make for you guys that y'all would be interested in. I hope y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching this video so much. I'll catch you on the next one.